I'm your host, John Slating, and today I'm joined by Joie Chitwood.
You need to fail to learn how to succeed. You got to get roughed up. You got to generate scar tissue. You got to know what that's like.
There's way too many people that want to take their problem and move it up the organizational chart, so to speak. And good leadership isn't to solve those problems, right, for the people that are there, but to empower them to go off and solve the problems.
Life is unfair. You will have things that happen to you that you don't deserve, but it's still going to happen. You just got to do one thing. Get up one more time, then you fall down.
Hello, and welcome to Clear Conversations, the Entrepreneurial Legacies series. I'm your host, John Slating, and today I'm joined by Joie Chitwood. Joie is Executive Director on behalf of the PGA of the President's Cup 2026. We'll explain more of that as we work through the conversation of exactly what the President's Cup is all about. This conversation regarding sports, and from motorsports to professional golf, the global impact, the involvement that Joie Chitwood has had from his own family business, working on behalf of some of the largest family businesses in motorsports, as well as with the PGA. He's just got a fantastic perspective on business, on life, advice for people no matter what stage of your career you're in, the business you're running, the perspective, the sports analogies. This is going to be a just great conversation with Joie. So as you're listening to it, think about who you're forwarding this episode onto, because I don't know how you don't like this conversation we're about to engage in. It's just it's a lot of fun and a lot of great life lessons out of it. So let's get started. Joie, thank you again for carving out time during a very busy time in your schedule. And listeners will get to understand why this is such a busy time with a huge event, global event that you have coming up. So thank you for carving out the time. Speaking of entrepreneurial legacies, you have a phenomenal background and storyline. But to start out, as I always do, this concept of legacy, what does that mean to you?
It's really interesting coming from a family business, right? You're kind of born into something that you're not really sure what it took to create it, but you're expected to be a cog in that wheel and to keep it rolling. And so a third generation, and here I am, a stuntman, and I'm 5 years old, I'm in a stunt show. I don't know any different. I just assume maybe every kid during the summer goes and does their family business. Right. And ultimately, it takes a while to realize that you are part of a legacy. And your grandfather created something that so many people do I remember when. Wow. And that's the most powerful thing anyone can say to you. You know, Joey, I remember when I was a young person and I saw the family show at the XYZ fair. And there's two little elements I think that you'll enjoy that are fun stories about how, for me, legacy is framed up. I think everybody knows who Evel Knievel is, yes, right? Yes. A well-known showman, stuntman, promoter, pick all of those things, but truly also one of the first from a sports licensing perspective, because there were toys and comic books and games and movies, everything else. Well, in his book, Evel gives credit to seeing my grandfather's stunt show at Butte, Montana, when Evel was a teenager, as the reason why he became a stuntman. Wow. Now think about legacy and the ability to impact people. So got to know Evel and his family. And when I was 8 years old, I appeared on ABC Wide World of Sports with Evel Knievel and Frank Gifford, to the point where Frank Gifford was driving my mini Indy race car around the track that had been built for me by Evel Knievel's dad. Wow. And so you say to yourself, goodness gracious, my family had an impact on someone, and he went down a path to become one of the most well-known stuntmen on the planet. And so that's just kind of that you're part of something bigger than yourself when you can impact people to that level. So it continues, not just knowing Evel or being a stuntman, but I'm the president of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, a racetrack that my grandfather raced at in the 1940s. So before he became a stuntman, he was a race car driver. So 50 years later, I'm running the most historic racetrack on the planet, and my grandfather had raced there. Well, the pre-race of the Indy 500 to me is the best 20 minutes in sports. You know, the playing of taps and Back Home Again in Indiana, the national anthem. And back then, Jim Nabors, Gomer Pyle, would sing Back Home Again in Indiana. He would fly in from Hawaii every year. By the way, when he retired from acting, I think his profession became macadamia nut farmer. He bought a macadamia nut farm. And so it's about 3 minutes before Jim is going to grab the mic and sing that iconic song to the 300,000 plus live in person. And of course, everyone out there watching on TV. He said, Joey, come over here. Joey, come on, I want to talk to you. I'm like, Jim, okay, Jim, what's up? What do you need? Did I ever tell you about the story of Wisconsin State Fair, seeing your grandfather's stunt show? No, Jim, but we got 2 minutes here. And he goes, yeah, me and Doc Severinsen were arguing. Okay, Jim, what are you arguing? Well, the stunt show's going on, and we know when the stunt show is over and we've got to get up and perform, all the crowd's going to leave. And neither one of us wants to play to an empty grandstand. So finally I said, and he used maybe a little vulgar term said, heck with that, Doc. You're doing it. I'm leaving. I'm not playing to an empty crowd. I'm in the middle of running the largest single-day sporting event in the world. Jim Nabors is going to do something iconic with that song, and he's got time to tell me a story about my family and the Wisconsin State Fair. And that's when you start to realize how this legacy, this thing that my grandfather did, touched more than just, you know, the kid eating popcorn watching the stunt show, but Evel Knievel wanting to be a stuntman, or Jim Nabors wanting to tell me a story before the Indy 500. And so I think that's where things frame up for you in terms of, goodness gracious, you know, what it was you came from, where you're going, and the impact that you can have on folks. And for me, I'm a lucky person that I got to be a part of that. And those experiences, I think, have framed up a lot of my perspective that allow me to continue to perform and excel in sports, because I come from a place where I can see how we can impact people from just the enjoyment of a sporting event.
So I think listeners have already gotten a flavor that this conversation is going to go in a lot of different directions, and the different nuggets and the lessons learned. Thinking about the story with Evel Knievel. When you're out there, your grandfather, presuming, right? He didn't set out and going, wow, I want to go inspire, you know, this young person to go off and do what they did, because there was no way of knowing that. But you're doing what you love, right? Your family was doing what it loved, it enjoyed doing, and the entertainment that was coming with that. And yet how that turned around and inspired somebody like Evel Knievel. And then for that to come full circle like it did. Or even just the pausing for a moment, or the 2 minutes, right? To tell the story to a young boy. You said you were 8. No, you weren't 8 years old at that point in time, but you were 8 when the story took place. And then having that time in the midst of this event for Jim Nabors just to pause and embrace you as an individual and the human experience that's taking place amongst the chaos of everything else that's going on. And there's this aspect of just trying to slow down, which again, I'm talking to myself here, right? Being fully present. You don't know who you're engaging, who's around, who's listening. You don't know who's watching. And yet how you approach whatever it is that you're choosing to do, and doing with that excellence, because I believe that turns around and inspires others. And then you find yourself as part of this as a family, third generation, and living a legacy. But then there's also the creation of your own legacy that comes out of that. How do you feel the tension regarding living out a grandfather's legacy and coming through the generations versus the creation of your own?
That's a fairly complicated question. Anyone who's been in a family business for a long amount of time, and the pride you have in that, to choose to leave. And at that point in leaving the family business, I didn't have any kids. I was on my own at that point, and not really sure what's going to happen to the business that your dad and your uncle are currently running. And so very emotional time, but the desire to show or prove that I can do my own thing, which ultimately I think are some of the things that my grandfather and my dad instilled in me about being successful and performing and go out there and do it yourself. So as much as my dad would like to have seen me continue on, I think everything they showed me, taught me, I needed to go put that in play for myself and come up with my own plan. That's a really tough time, especially being 22, 23 years old, but having spent 20 years of my life as a stuntman from age 5 to age 24, and ultimately going to college and not really being that motivated. And by the way, if you're going to go someplace and not be motivated, I would highly recommend Gainesville, Florida.
Is that right?
Oh, I would. From what I remember, there were some great football games. I think there were some fraternity parties, but I didn't take advantage of those opportunities because I assumed I was going to be in the family business.
Okay.
And so I still think about that today, because when I ultimately chose to leave after graduating and spending one more year with the family, I made the decision to leave. And I felt like maybe the Tom Petty song, Learning to Fly.
Yeah.
I needed to learn to fly. I don't know what I'm supposed to do now. I kind of left something I thought would be everything for me.
Yeah.
And I had to go back to school and kind of reformulate and refocus on what I needed to do. And I kind of flipped the switch a little bit. And that was, you can sleep when you retire. It's time to overdo it. Let's over-index. Let's try it all. What do you like? What don't you like? Let's chart our path.
Did you have pressure from the family maybe to stay in the family business and you felt the need to leave, or was it?
I think there are a number of factors. Also, when you think about a family business that has been around from 1943, and I left in 1993, okay? So generationally, think about the world changing. And not really sure how many county fairs are still out there or small speedways. And I think we were also seeing the pressures on a business that in the 1950s, my grandfather had 5 units touring the United States. We were barnstorming everywhere because a county fair was the number one entertainment option for families and everyone. So again, as you're seeing the business and the pressures come with it, and then typical family, different opinions on where it should or shouldn't go. And you can remove me from the equation just seeing the challenge for my dad and my uncle in terms of charting out what they believed to be the right path. And so for me, it felt like it was time to go do my own thing. And you look back and can you pinpoint one moment in time? You can't really. It's more a realization of the bigger picture. And for me, it just felt like I needed to go do something else. Now, to this day, I'm going to just be really candid. I have carried that chip on my shoulder. There are days when it's pretty heavy and there are days when it's not, but the need to show that I can do my thing. And I think that was an important thing that got me past insecurity or not having confidence. Like, I learned so much at an early age that I didn't realize I was really ready for anything. And I guess I would back up and tell you the training that I got from the stunt show. Imagine, back before an iPhone could solve all your problems, we're operating 5 months a year on the road, June through October. We would leave Tampa. We had 4 semis, 4 tractor trailers, and 3 other over-the-road vehicles. So basically a troop of 7 vehicles that would perform 4 or 5 shows a week. So we might be in Dunkirk, New York on a Thursday night, and we would perform our stunt show. We need to be in Honesdale, Pennsylvania the next day to perform the stunt show that night. And from there, maybe we went to the Erie County Fair in Hamburg, New York. Who knows?
Yeah.
But we had to get from spot to spot, hand out a route slip that I would hand to you on a 3x5 index card, and where I'd say, stay on this route. If you break down, I will get you. I've got the mechanic and the money. But if you're not on this route, I won't see you, I'll miss you, and you're going to have to call the fairgrounds to leave a message that you're not going to make it. Right. So we're still barnstorming in the 80s because, again, we didn't have technology options to help us. But you develop that we are going to figure this out. There's no other choice. We have a commitment we have to make, and if this person didn't make it or this vehicle, we're going to overcome. We still have a show that we have to perform. And in the heat of the moment, you're just doing what you do. But exiting that and being on my own, this, at least I think, feeling that, okay, let's figure it out. Yeah. Like, I'm used to that. And by the way, a traveling stunt show, the things that can go wrong, we could spend an hour and I could list them all, and the unique personalities that you deal with negotiating with the fairs and you name it. But it's interesting though, to this day, the lessons that I learned then, I can still apply. to where we are now. But ultimately, those, not only was it the desire to show them, but that I was well prepared to chart my own path. And you take for granted maybe, the lessons you learned along the way, the experiences. I call it scar tissue.
Yeah.
I think the most important thing that we can do is create scar tissue. Yeah. And you only do that by being in the game.
Yeah.
And you got to get roughed up.
Things going wrong.
I'm learning how to do the aerial wing walk. Okay. And this is a stunt I did at 14 years old. And my dad would drive a car on two wheels. He would drive it up a ramp and balance it and actually physically drive around the racetrack on two wheels. I would climb out of the passenger window and I would stand on the side of the car and think of it as surfing on the side of a car while my dad's driving it on two wheels. So the TV show That's Incredible came to film that.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have the car up on blocks because they wanted some B-roll of preparation, training, and I would practice getting in and out of the car. And my grandfather, who was still alive at the time, would rock the car to simulate motion. I'd get in, I'd get out. He'd rock the car. I'd get in, get out. So we're doing this for maybe 10, 15 minutes, and I'm standing on the side, and he pushes the car all the way back over on all four wheels. And I fall off, and I kind of roll in the dirt, and I get up, and I look at him and we called him the Chief. That was his nickname. And so, Chief, why'd you do that? And you need to understand, he grew up as a race car driver, stuntman. He was a tough individual. And let's just say he had a different perspective on life. And he goes, you got to learn that too. So I'm 14. And so, of course, you know what I learned that day? Any guesses?
You're gonna fall off the car at a point in time, and you got to know how to fall.
Absolutely nothing. I learned nothing.
You learned nothing.
I was embarrassed. Why did you do that to me when they're filming us?
Oh, gotcha.
So, 5, 6, 10 years later, maybe a therapy session or two, the realization that you need to fail to learn how to succeed. Agreed. You got to get roughed up. You got to generate scar tissue. You got to know what that's like. Yeah. And again, in the moment.
It took a while to learn that, though.
In the moment, you're embarrassed. Oh,
yeah, okay.
Chief, why are you doing that to me? I don't understand. So, but boy, when it resonates and I get it now.
Yeah.
And by the way, he crashed a lot of race cars. When he got the stunt show, he wasn't a stunt man. He had to do everything from scratch, and he wrecked a lot to learn how to do the stunts. And so, again, a good little perspective in terms of, what it takes to succeed, how the family trained me. And years and years later, I continue to think about things that I learned, like, oh my goodness, that's a perfect story of what happened back in the 80s.
Well, and so our focus is on business and entrepreneurism, but there's so many life lessons that just come out of that story that are both, I don't know, in the coined phrase, the helicopter parent came into play, right? To rescue the kids from ever being hurt. And here you're doing stunts, right? That are life-threatening stunts, potentially, that come into play. And yet you got to learn how to take the spills to be able to get back up again, to make sure that you're adjusting for any movement that's taking place in the car. And personally, this is where I believe, and I've got 4 grandchildren now and seeing all my adult children. And the worst thing I think is helicopter parents that come in. And the same is true in the workplace. There's way too many people that want to take their problem and move it up the organizational chart, so to speak. And good leadership isn't to solve those problems, right, for the people that are there, but to empower them to go off and solve the problems and to give that time and distance to allow them to fail quickly. It doesn't have to be their company, doesn't have to be on the side of a car standing on your hands or anything else, but there has to be the learning and individuals that have to take operational risks themselves. And it's turned into a little bit of a joke with some of the team because it's like, I want you to take operational risks. Go figure this out, and you just better be right. And not to paralyze, right, but to empower and to make sure that everyone's thinking through, here's all the potentialities and solving problems, because ultimately the entire team needs to solve those problems. And you learn that at a very young age. And it sounds like you didn't have helicopter parents. They were actually, that was part of the family business, just to get out there and to do that.
I think one of the challenges for all of us as leaders, no matter if it's a family legacy or business we're in, is, as we drive for success, we're instilled with certain beliefs, core values that we grew up with at some point, But generationally, we need to understand that as we coach and mentor the next generation or the generation below that for success in any role, is really understanding let's just say, the environment they've grown up in, the tools they've had, the helicopter parenting that has been instilled in them forever. And it can be tougher to help them generate some scar tissue, if you will. And it's not their fault per se. It's what they have seen and learned or how they've been treated. And so I always kind of think through, whether it's raising my son who's 25 now and things I want him to think about or know, and not to be heavy-handed or, when I was little, I walked up the hill 10 miles in snow to go to school, but providing some balance of perspective and, hey, maybe here's some things that I think would be really helpful for you. I have a chance once in a while to speak to some college kids about things. And there's a gentleman who runs the sports marketing department at DePaul here in Chicago, Andy Clark. And I've gone now, I think 3 or 4 semesters in a row. And I am so excited to talk to these young people and give them life lessons. And I tend to be pretty blunt and direct. And we talk about not the cool hospitality I'm trying to sell or the ticketing strategy, but life lessons and things that I think you need to know because here's what's coming. Yeah. One of the things I share is, and it's a little bit of my spiel, but they're all in the class and, you're going to have half of them pay attention and half of them not. I get it. And they've got their phones up and somebody's up back there saying, can I get out of this class as quick as I can? Who's this guy? And I make them all stand up. I said, everybody get up. Everybody get up, stand up, stand up. Andy Clark, you're the professor. You stand up. Everybody stand up. Okay, sit back down. Okay, life is unfair. You will have things that happen to you that you don't deserve, but it's still going to happen. Mm-hmm. You can't do the woe is me. You can't do this. You might not get the next job opportunity, even though you're more qualified, you think, than the other candidate. It's going to happen. Right. You just got to do one thing. Get up one more time, then you fall down. And guess what? You just did it for me right here. You got up. So you always have to keep that in the back of your mind. Don't play the woe is me card. Right. It's going to happen to you. Yes, you're going to have to go through the emotions that come with it, shock, anger, denial. Those are all, but find out about yourself what it takes to overcome those emotions and get back up and keep going. Yeah. And it's interesting, I can talk about other little lessons, but just that concept and framing it up that way, you can see a little bit of some eyes, oh, okay, like nothing's going to be perfect ever. Yeah. And candidly, there's odds are it's going to be imperfect more than perfect. And are you ready for it? If not, get ready now, but just keep getting up and keep going.
Because from that develops the scar tissue, as you were saying, right? Each time you get back up, it's like, okay, I got knocked down. I learned something from that. And there's an aspect, one of the things we're talking a lot about in the office is society changes, right? And a lot talked about with artificial intelligence and what's good and bad and whatever, different perspectives on that. But this concept that knowledge is being commoditized. Historical knowledge can be gained on everybody's phone, right? You don't need the card and staying on course, right? Because everyone can access amazing information on their phone in the moment. So then the question from there goes, then where is value created? And more building conviction around, well, value gets created from wisdom, right? Wisdom is going to be the value of the future, not the knowledge. I think this has got wide-ranging implications for educational institutions, right? You don't have to teach people to memorize something because they have access to everything instantaneously around the world. So now where does wisdom come from? And I'm also a believer that wisdom comes from the learned experience. Yeah. How do you apply that knowledge base to the learned experience? I can maybe read about or learn how do you do a handstand on a car on 2 wheels going across the track, right? That knowledge is only going to get me so far. How do you be wise about everything that's happening? And I do believe that comes from that scar tissue, that lived experience, and then how that promotes you into the next opportunity and the next opportunity that gets created. So I want to focus a little bit on like your current project during this very busy time. And then I'd love to go back and say, okay, back into your 20s, when you left the Chitwood Thrill Show and you went out on your own, of like what built you to the opportunity that you have in front of you right now. Now, I will say before I forget, if listeners want to go out on YouTube and search up the Chitwood Thrill Show, I think that's all you have to put in. Yeah. And all of a sudden you're going to get all kinds of videos of some of the items that you're describing, which are fantastic to look back on. And I remember like those days, even though they look like way older than they should in the videos that are there, but Well, I encourage people, go take it. You'll get a glimpse into what Joey's speaking of.
Classic case, the internet is undefeated.
Right.
Things live forever.
Right, they do. They do.
And I've found images and videos I never knew existed of my family's business, or things my grandfather did for GM back in the 50s on the beaches of Daytona. And I'm like, when did he do this? I didn't know he did this. And so it is fun once in a while, just when someone sends me something that I've never seen this, or I never saw this poster. And oh my goodness, I love it for my collection. But it is fun to know that it's going to live for a long time. Whether it's forever or not, I don't know. But the fact that you can look up and see some funny things about the family name, and it for me, it's definitely a good conversation starter.
Oh gosh,
you know, there's some good stories to tell, and I do enjoy having fun with it. You know, and whether it's this conversation or in a social setting, you know, just sharing some unique elements or stories, and I think that's just part of scar tissue.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, but I will say, you know, my son, you know, it's tough because we don't have a stunt show. So he doesn't have a family legacy to follow in. So he's got to chart his own path from the beginning and helping coach and guide, but he's got to do it. And so trying to find the balance of not being a helicopter parent, sharing things I've done, but also giving him what he needs to succeed. And, you know, I've had this talk with him about scar tissue, get up one more time, then you get knocked down, and other things. And it's, I think, a little bit more challenging. It's almost easier to talk to other individuals about it versus when you have to talk to your own family and your son, and you don't want to be preachy.
Right.
You want to be thoughtful and compassionate, but also make sure they understand the importance of what you're telling them. And look, as we see with most kids, you know, half the thing a parent says to them is in one ear and out the other. And that's just how it is between parents and kids. And finding the balance of the communication in which it resonates and he listens versus when I know he's glazed out and it's time to end the conversation and we'll pick this up some other time. And a little bit tougher for me in that environment because I truly want him to succeed. And I'm doing that because I want him to be part of a legacy, even though he's not a stuntman.
Right.
The fact that he can create his own, and here's some things that might help him do that.
Right. And that's, I think, is both hands. You're living, you know, the family tree that you're a part of that, and for good and bad, and the different stories that come from families, and the opportunity to chart your own path. And so one of the items, right, for all listeners and all of us, there is the aspect where it's easier said than done at times. Even within families, you know, children are different, right? And how you engage one child could be very different than how you engage the other child, and what that plays out. So we're not going to pretend to say, here's the answers, right? I mentioned, when we were off microphone here, you know, the mini series we did on family governance, and just how, you know, families come together, and the tools that are out there to help support them, because life is also hard, right? Like there's a lot of scar tissue. There's a lot of getting knocked down and as long as that scar tissue is going through physical therapy to get healed in terms of making it productive versus debilitating, that becomes very constructive and positive. So we don't want to make any pretense that, oh, this is easy and here's follow this script, because it is hard when it plays out with each of our children, our grandchildren, you know, team members, friends, et cetera.
So I would add to this, I think family is difficult on its own. Take business out of it, right? Just family, supporting each other, the challenges that we experience, the path they choose. Now add in a family business, which could have a legacy. It could be generational. It might be under some business stress in terms of its survival. And you add that element to the traditional family challenges, the pressure can be pretty overwhelming. When you have that family name on the wall for everyone to see, and you're the steward of your family name now, and it's all on you for that brand to continue to be handed off to the next generation, I think that's very difficult. And there is no class in college just for that. Maybe there should be, but I think that adds such an additional layer to general family maintenance and challenge anyways. And, you know, the thing that I've always focused on, and I've joy, pleasure, I don't even know the right word. I feel really comfortable dealing with family businesses. And after leaving my family's business, I had a chance to work for the Holman George family.
So let's pause there because I want to come back to those.
Okay.
I want to come back to the view of those families, but I want to give listeners a glimpse into working with non-family from a corporate viewpoint first on your current projects. And I want to come back through this family piece of it and explore that further, Joy, if we could.
Absolutely.
So let's dive into, we mentioned already President's Cup, PGA, but share for listeners more of like what you're doing today.
So I'm currently the executive director of the President's Cup. That's a biennial event. It's hosted every 2 years, either in a foreign country or in the United States. So in 2022, it was at Charlotte, North Carolina. In 2024 is at Montreal, Canada. After our event at Medina Country Club here in September, 2 years from now, it'll be in Australia. And 2 years after that, it'll be in Bellerive in St. Louis. And we pit 12 of the best United States golfers against 12 international golfers. And think of international as defined of everyone except Europe. European players are more fixated on the Ryder Cup. So we're talking about players from Asia, Australia, South America, South Africa, Canada, Mexico, and team competition golf at the highest level. And you, in essence, are creating this theater for the athletes to put on the show. And so here at Medina, I've been boots on the ground for 3 years now. It's the earliest we've ever put anyone on the ground, but that's because the size and scope of what we're planning is so significant. It will be the biggest President's Cup in our 30-year history. And there's a couple things that you factor into why or how's it going to be successful, and why is it going to be the biggest? And you look at three things at the end of the day. The event itself, we've seen a phenomenal growth pattern, this USA versus the world concept, thrilling matches, great golf. Golf on its own is thriving. Our metrics are incredible. I think TV ratings were up 15% last year. Charlotte in 2022 was the largest President's Cup to date. Okay. Montreal was the largest international event to date. Okay, so we've got an event that's on a growth pattern. Well, now you need a venue. Medina Country Club, 100 years of history, championship course that has hosted a U.S. Open, a PGA Championship, and a Ryder Cup. And now they're going to add the President's Cup to it. Throw in a $25 million renovation 2 years ago to the championship course. We've got the venue, we've got the theater. This is the place to put on the show, and now you need a market. I don't think I need to explain to everyone listening and watching us now that Chicago has got a serious sports fan base that show up rain, snow, sleet, right, sunshine, bad schedule, bad ranking. It doesn't matter. They show up and they're loud and proud. And you take those three things, and that's when you get a lot more than three. You're going to have this exponential result, and we're seeing it. When you think about what I really am doing with the team I've got, we build a temporary sports venue from scratch. Okay, we are not bricks and mortar. We don't have parking lots. We don't have walls. We're not in a fixed location. We create the venues from scratch and go to market to create the book of business to support the event. And so we started the build on April 6th of this year. We will build all the way to September 21st, and we open on September 22nd. Right now, our plan calls for 566,000 square feet of venues. That is a phenomenal amount of structures that we have to build on tee boxes or greens on a golf course, which is not the easiest to navigate with heavy equipment to build these venues. For perspective, the Players' Championship in Ponte Vedra, that's one of our more famous events, the Island Green. And when anyone sees that on TV, you see all the structure around it. They build about 501,000 square feet. So right now, we're probably 10% bigger than the Players' Championship down in Ponte Vedra. You have to be flexible and nimble to deal with the things that come your way. And that's because we don't have a routine or a habit. This is our first time here running this event. We're creating it all from scratch. Sometimes we don't have all the answers. We think we do. We might not be able to apply the lesson learned from Ponte Vedra or from Memphis or from Atlanta because this venue is a little bit different, and we have to look or think outside the box to maybe solve this problem. And yes, there's great data points out there, but it's not one size fits all. And the Atlanta model doesn't work in Chicago. The Chicago model likely won't work in St. Louis. We know they won't work at any foreign country that hosts the event because it's a whole different animal. And imagine you're in Canada and running a sporting event. You have to have both French and English for everything. A website in French, a website in English. If you're going to have an event in Montreal, double the work to communicate to your customer. So I'm in the middle of what I'll just call not chaos, but let's say we're very frenetic and we have to keep moving. We have to move. The clock is ticking and we have to be ready. And nobody wants to hear about this challenge or that challenge. You have to overcome and keep building, keep selling, keep moving, get ready, because on September 22nd, those players are going to take that tee for a practice round, and there's no choice in that.
Right.
I'm having a bad week. Can we delay the event a little bit? No, that's not a choice. And so there is that pressure that our team has to handle in addition to the regular challenges of every day. And even prior to coming to sit down and talk with you, I was in the hallway with another phone call on a flare-up today that needed some immediate attention, but immediate attention to keep it moving. We can't sit on it and wait a week or two, because that decision has a ripple effect on 3 other decisions that either I need to retract or let play out because of the decision we made today. And so think of me as a little bit of a ringleader. We've got a lot of folks out there running around, and I'm just trying to provide support to everyone to make sure we can hit our milestones and our schedule. And at the end of the day, give fans what they want, which is a fantastic sporting event. And I think when we all grow up, I think you want to be one of 2 things. I think you want to be an athlete or you want to be a rock star, right? I think there's this aspirational thing. And I think we enjoy sports so much because we can see athletic accomplishment that we can only dream about. That could we ever do that? Could I ever have an eagle or a hole-in-one or play golf to that level? Yeah. And we look at these athletes as aspirational. I might see something today I've never seen before. Yeah. And so our job is to build the stage for the world to see it, whether in person or on TV. And that's ultimately probably longer than the 5-cent description of my job, but a little bit of what we focus on every day and how we get from A to B.
And then the business, because then as a consumer, right, we take that in, whether, being in television, we've got a hospitality suite there. So we're looking forward to the perfection that you're creating and the stadium that you're building to host people in order to build relationship, to have a shared experience in life that ends up being joyful. And that, do you remember when we went to the President's Cup back in 2026, right? Those are the stories that we hope to come out of it. But then the business, you've been working on the planning then for 3+ years. I think when you walked in, you said 3 months, 3 weeks, right? As you count down, what are the business lessons learned, right? Because we see sport, but sport is big business. So when you look at the business aspect of running an organization, the number of people involved, the number of conflicting schedules and individuals, what are the business lessons learned that you're in the middle of right now from running this enormous project?
I think one of the things is you think about we're a pop-up shop, right? At the end of the day. And so, yes, we've got this following from the President's Cup, but there's a little bit of helping the market understand what this event is. And yes, you may be a golf fan, but maybe you've not paid attention to the President's Cup. Maybe you're a sports fan, and I need to understand what that is. So we need to do some teaching as to what we are. But then we've got to go explain that to companies that might want to participate and entertain VIPs or vendors or partners, or maybe it's employee opportunities. So we've got to translate how great this sporting event is. And here's all the things that we've done in our 30 years. But now we'd like you to invest and be our partner and celebrate this event, but use it for your own business interests. So I think the 3 years is so important because you've got to tell your story, then translate that into a business opportunity for others to support. And guess what? There's a lot of sports teams in Chicago. There's 2 baseball teams, a basketball team, hockey, football, soccer. I'm not even colleges. Right. And so this is a crowded sports marketplace. So here's Joey and the Pres Cup team. And by the way, we'd like you to invest with us. Well, Joey, I'm already at Wrigley Field. I'm already at Soldier Field. So there's some competition in market. And so we've got to be able to be compelling that we are this unique global sporting event in which you don't have a home team per se, you have a home country. and you're going to come represent your country. And whether you're from Asia and you're here to support the international team, or you're going to wear the red, white, and blue and celebrate that I'm for the Americans because I'm USA. And so I think we've got great talking points. We've got great things, but I can say it's great, but I got to go out there and I got to help share with people how great it is to tell the story, make sure we're relevant and impactful, that people would want to participate. And so that's, I think, a tall task in a very mature market. I always say this, there's moments in time when you can be the big fish in the little pond, right? So you're the biggest sporting event in a certain market and the entire community shuts down to support you. That's not the case here in Chicago.
Right.
You wake up any morning and there's a bazillion things you can go do, and sports could be one of them or not.
Right.
And so we've got to make sure we have a compelling message in market to get people to pay attention, news-wise, investment from partners-wise, just attention, and then tell our story to get you to want to be there, whether it's a grounds admission or a suite ticket. We live in a world where social media is very relevant. And so you've got to balance out who you're talking to, how you're talking to, what's the right form of communication. Chicago's a bit of an expensive market too. You can't just roll out some advertising campaign and be on TV every minute of the day. So being strategic in how we tell the story, utilizing all the tools possible. We've got a great team at corporate. So it's a little bit of a hybrid where we've got boots on the ground, myself and probably about 10 other individuals, but then we rely on a number of corporate departments that represent the PGA Tour from a marketing aspect, the back of house, accounting, HR, all those things. So it's complicated from the standpoint of you have a hybrid model of boots on the ground and corporate support. The tour runs, over 40 events a year just from what I'll call our level. There's the Korn Ferry Tour. There's other tours that we own and run as well. So there's golf all the time. So I have to make sure we're getting the attention we need as well. Right. When we are also supporting other events. Case in point, last year, I had the opportunity to go jump in to run another event for the tour. And it was a one-off event in Philadelphia at the Philadelphia Cricket Club. So I was given 9 months to jump into Philly, still do the Chicago job. And so at that point, I had 2 apartments, one in Chicago and one in Philly, but the same thing. Okay, going into Philly, new course, new event, new partner, because we had to move it out of Charlotte for 1 year based on a major being hosted down in Quail Hollow. And we had to do the same thing. We had to tell our story, create some news, explain to everyone how great an event this will be, signature event, and all those elements. And it was making sure we got the resources we needed to be successful when that team is also supporting Ponte Vedra Players Championship, the Tour Championship in Atlanta, the FedEx St. Jude's in Memphis, or the Cognizant Classic in Palm Beach. So it's there's a lot going on, and you've got to be an internal steward of your brand to get the resources to be able to be a successful external steward of your brand with all the tools necessary to make an impact in an unbelievable market that is Chicago. And by the way, all of our metrics are playing out exactly as we'd hoped. The response has been phenomenal. We've got great members of the team who have been able to guide and help and make sure we have the right brand, the right look, the right feel, the right compelling videos to make an impression. And so proud to be on that team because we're seeing the results. Now, we still have 3 months and 3 weeks to go, so can't slow down. But I am really pleased with where we are. And now is the time where you're just functioning on caffeine and adrenaline, and it's keep going and don't slow down. You slow down on the Monday or Tuesday afterwards once you've put it in the record books.
In the phrase, people think that the grass is greener. So I'm not sure how appropriate that is when we're talking about, golf greens, but the grass is greener because it's a business. And when people step back, and I think there's a lot of times where it gets idolized a bit in terms of that professional athlete who I want to grow up because they see what they see on television, but all the behind the scenes and the fact that it's like, you don't have unlimited resources. You have finite resources. You're competing with others internally. You're being asked to do 2 jobs at once. And you don't do it begrudgingly, but that's just where the organization is at. So when people think the grass is greener, going, oh, if I could only get, from this business to that business. Oh, if I could, move from this job to that job. It's like, it's the same no matter where you go. Everyone's dealing with finite resources, trying to make the best decisions possible, launch out and, create a great product, and then communicate that product to others in a crowded space that's everybody's business problem. So don't think that, wow, if I could only be in Joey's shoes and, running this President's Cup event, life would be great. It's like, yeah, it's great. Enjoy what you're doing, but that doesn't mean that it's void of challenges.
So I'd add another layer to this, and that is you get to work in sports. I'm not hanging out in the suite. I'm not getting autographs on the driving range because I have the right credential. I'm there with the team when we open up really early, and I'm there with the team when we stay late. And candidly, we're not even watching the competition. We're dealing with customers, and we're hustling to make sure the venue is prepared and showing stuff. So you're the behind the scenes person. And so I think sometimes there's a little bit of this glamorous element that I'm in sports. Now, look, I'm glad I'm in sports. I think I have great experiences and knowledge I can help. But I also understand it's not that glamorous. It's when you get the phone call and someone's unhappy because this temporary structure we built isn't up to par and doesn't have the right look and feel and all those elements. Yeah. So yes, working in sports, is it cool? Of course, absolutely. But it's not like a regular 9 to 5. You are a 24/7 person, and there's a little bit of no safety net. So we have one chance in time and 1 week to put on the best event possible. I don't get to make it up. There's a rain date, right. Oh, you didn't enjoy this. Come to the next game tomorrow or in 2 days, I'll make it up to you. We have one shot to make this right. I feel the same when I was at the Indy 500 or the Daytona 500 running those. You got one shot to make it right. So there's a little bit of that extra pressure that, again, as you work through your career and build your scar tissue, you can handle that.
Yes.
But for some younger folks, the reality of head down grind and who's here at 5 a.m. to open up this and who's here at 9 p.m. to close this and it's not as, let's just say, no one's got their feet up watching the event right. and acting like they're part of the hospitality base. Right. It's where the ones behind the scenes making it perfect so everyone else can enjoy the event. And I think there's a little bit of that thing where everybody thinks if you're in sports, you get to hang out with the athletes. That is not the case. Right. And to your point, the grass is always greener. Yeah, you got to think twice about that.
Before we leave golf and go back to motorsports, what are the items in preparation for the President's Cup that you've been surprised by, in your own falling down and getting back up, or things that just went sideways on you, even with all your experience and all of the scar tissue that you built up over a career? What is anything that sticks out that you've been surprised by or that really took a turn on you?
So, this is an interesting point of view. I think I'd have to say this. I feel like, and we'll talk about the racing part in a bit, but racing and golf are unbelievably similar, okay? There's no home team. There's no away team. You have this schedule that stretches across the U.S. This athlete base is, in essence, independent contractors, right? Mm-hmm. And so if you think back to racing and, we'll pick a Tony Stewart. He drove a Chevrolet. Scotty Scheffler uses a TaylorMade. Okay, now let's plaster each of them with logos. So I felt very comfortable getting into the golf space because I thought racing was eerily similar. Probably golf and racing are so much different than football and basketball. Again, no home, no away. Yeah. We want to go to a new venue, Philly Cricket Club. Okay, let's go out there and build it from scratch. And then we leave, versus, well, I'm not going to use the Bears and Soldier Field, but let's say the United Center. That's going to be there, and that's where the Bulls are going to play. And so there's some consistency and there's things. So I think I was prepared for the flexibility and nimbleness you need because you can't be rigid in your thought pattern. You truly have to approach everything with a flexible or nimble response because this is a new venue for us. This is a new build, this hospitality map we've never done before. We're going to learn some things. It may look good on a map. We get out there in reality and try and build it. Boy, these trees this doesn't really fit. How do we need to adjust. How do we do this? And so I think I'm ready for that. There still are those surprises every day, as great as a plan we think we had. And then with the team, it's how quickly can we move to solve it? We can't belabor the point. So am I surprised? Sure, there's going to be surprises every day of an issue that came up. Yeah. I feel comfortable, though, that everything I've done to this point, it really translates to the golf world, and I can be ready to deal with it. I will say this. I am not surprised. This team competition, this USA versus the world, the energy that comes with that, it's a special event. people tend to say I might get excited a little bit about what I get to do. And I think about the role I play. And if I can't get excited about this sporting event and I'm the person who's got to help build the stage again, put on the show, how can I get you excited if I'm not the one leading that charge and being enthusiastic? So there is that element of you're doing something that people are going to remember, hopefully forever.
Yeah.
Hey, did you go to that Ryder Cup at Medina? Oh my gosh. Just you're going to help people create stories and tell the I remember whens.
Yeah.
And you got to keep that in the back of your mind. That's what your job is.
Yeah. Because people talk about that at Medina. Do you remember when? And
they talk about the 2012 Ryder Cup, which was not the best experience for the U.S. team. Some called it the miracle at Medina for the Europeans or the massacre at Medina for the Americans. But
you remember when?
The pressure to make sure that that's the end goal. Yeah. Give the fans an incredible experience and let them see athletes perform at the highest level. And there's a pressure to that. And that's a little bit different than just a bottom line, here's what the EBITDA number needs to be today, tomorrow, the next time. And so again, yes, surprises every day, but ultimately feel like our team knows what we're doing. I've got some staff that they were at the Australia event, which was before Charlotte. So they were at the event in 2020. So I've got some teammates that just have great experiences. And it's really fun because it allows us as a team to move fast because we've got experiences from other sports or other President's Cup where we can see it, analyze it, agree, go. And I think that's the fun part where you can move fast. And for someone who might be new, that learning curve. And can you function at a fast rate because we don't have extra time to debate and discuss. We could last year, but in the year of the event, it's move fast, make good decisions, and then execute. Yeah.
There's a lot that you're sharing, and then I'm taking it in, being like, okay, so what does this mean for me? And I encourage listeners to do the same. All of our businesses are different, right? And with Clearwater Capital being a family office wealth management firm, and I think about our different family members, right? Our different families, they've got their different businesses, a lot of first-generation entrepreneurial wealth, so they're figuring out their own businesses. They're trying to figure out how to engage their families. It's a new world that they've moved into regarding the successes that they're realizing. They feel like it's them against the world, right? So I don't want to stretch this too far in terms of the analogy, but I am taking that in because it is. I think about our team. You've got to move fast. Here's what's coming up. This is the time now, and then there's going to be other times where you can slow down a little bit and be a little bit measured. But then taking that risk, and you got to make quick decisions. This comes back into the wisdom piece of it. So hopefully the training in the earlier years is paying itself off because now is the time everybody's just got to execute. We can't be sitting around having a committee meeting to talk about it.
I've got a great quote that I love. I've used many times, and I think it kind of encapsulates this. And Mario Andretti, very famous race car driver, fantastic lineage with his son and grandson. He's the only man to have won the Indy 500, the Daytona 500, and a Formula One World Championship. No one in history will ever do that again. That is unbelievable. He said, if things seem like they're under control, you're just not going fast enough. And I think that applies to everything we do. If you're moving fast, you're on that edge. And you need to be on that edge because guess what? Everybody's trying to go fast behind you. Yeah. And the minute you go slow because you want to have it all under control, someone's getting out there in front of you. But I just love that quote because I think it takes all of those things and just puts together in a real simple statement of, if you're under control, maybe you should be pushing a little bit
harder.
Get to that edge. Get a little bit of that uncomfortableness. Get a little bit of that tension. I think that makes us focus a little bit more. It gives us a little bit more of an edge. And again, I know we all tend to crave habit and routine.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to get out of that. You got to push a little bit, but it's human nature, right? I'm sure most folks, when they go to work every morning, they follow the same routine to get to the same location, the same thing. And I think that's human nature. Yeah. Once in a while, you got to break out of that and just push a little bit. And you know what? I have a great teammate who said to me, and had jumped in to help with the Philadelphia event and actually raised his hand and wanted to jump in. And he said, hey, I want to be a little uncomfortable because you learn when you're uncomfortable. Yeah. And I thought, what a great line and why he wanted to jump in, which is knowing it was going to be tough, knowing we were jumping into the deep end of the pool.
Yeah.
But you're going to be uncomfortable, but you'll learn from it. Again, we could say that's a variation of scar tissue if you want. But to hear an individual go, hey, Joey, I'm in with you. And here's actually why I'm doing it. I'm like, come on, I'm with you. Let's go. Let's go be uncomfortable.
Right.
Because we know we're going to learn from this. We're going to be better for it. But also, we're making a difference.
Right.
You're in the middle of it. And so we all want to be part of a team that makes a difference. But again, who knew that Mario would be so prophetic when he had that great line in terms of a racing analogy? I think that really applies to a lot of everything that we do.
Well, so now we've got to go back and provide listeners. So we went from the Chitwood Thrill Show. We fast forwarded to currently, and the president's coming up this September 2026. Now we'll fill in the in-between years. So when you left the family business, and you've mentioned already, some of the different endeavors you had, take us, kind of through that career a little bit and the other sports experiences in motorsports that you've shared.
So do we have an hour or two? Look, I'm a very lucky person. And I'm not sure I ever really realized that for a while. Again, you're seeing things from a different lens based on how old you are and the pressures you're feeling. So I decided to go back to school and refocus. And I was going to get an MBA from the University of South Florida in Tampa. And right place, right time, right location for me to flip the switch. I was provided so many great opportunities to apply myself, be involved in some leadership opportunities, but then the perspective of, gosh, I can actually be impactful. By raising your hand and wanting that, I can make a difference. And I found how fulfilling that is. And then also realizing, wow, I've got some experience. I feel like I can have an opinion. I did what most folks do when you're getting ready to graduate college or your grad degree is. I sent out a couple resumes, and I picked the biggest names in motorsports I could think of. And I picked Bill France with NASCAR, and I picked Tony George with IndyCar or Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And I got a rejection letter from Bill France. Right? I still have that today. Yeah, still in file. Again, remember when I said about the chip on my shoulder? Yeah. That's fuel for the fire at some point. Tony answered my letter and said he's opening up Walt Disney World Speedway. I'm in Tampa at the time, and he's looking for some individuals, and he'll call me. I got hired, 3-month gig, just as a contractor to help open up Walt Disney World Speedway. So, Joey shows up, 20 years of experience. I've got a finance degree from Florida, an MBA. I am ready to solve the world's problems. Let's go. And I'm carrying TVs up the grandstand to the race control. Now, mind you, not flat screens. We're talking tube TVs, kind of heavy. I'm moving equipment from the outside first aid station to the inside first aid station. 5 a.m., I'm at the back gate signing people in with credentials. Now, there's a moment in time where the epiphany happens, and that is, the student loan's going to kick in here. You got a grad degree, you got 20 years, and your wife is going to divorce you. Like, this is not what she signed up for. So we have a good laugh about that. But what do you do in that instance when you really question everything? You put your head down and you grind, and you do every single thing that they give you, and you do it with energy. You get it done right, and you ask for more. And you can't get into think, well, I'm better than this. I've got all this. I can't. No. You grind. You put your head down and you show people you're willing to do anything that's in front of you. I had an opportunity then to get a full-time job, and I moved to Indianapolis, became the manager of administration for the Indy Racing League, a fledgling league that Tony started to support the Indy 500. I spent 3.5 years there. And then Tony George was partnering with the France family. Did I mention that they turned down my resume?
That rejection letter you got.
I think I did. And it was a partnership with the France family to build Chicagoland Speedway in Joliet, Illinois. And Tony George would place me on the committee for the due diligence as we analyzed that opportunity. And then ultimately, I asked, and he said, absolutely, I would like to put my name in the hat for leadership of that opportunity. And he was supportive and sent me down to go meet the France family. Now, mind you, racing is a pretty tight-knit circle. So Bill Jr., who had sent my resume to and ultimately gave it to someone else and sent me the decline, he knew my grandfather and he knew my dad. Okay. So now I'm down there to interview with Bill Jr. And Bill Jr. Was the individual who took NASCAR to its heights. His dad created it, but Bill Jr. really took it to the level. And so sitting down with Bill, knowing he knows my family, knowing he knows the stunt show, but he just was hammering me with every question, every answer quick. And ultimately we got to the point where we talked about the stunt show. And We talked about the financials and the experiences, and he asked me some very interesting business questions, of which I shared some stories and examples, and specifically about, roll stock tickets and dollars and how you catch maybe ticket sellers putting money in their pocket versus the till and some of the things. And at that point, there was this thing where he said, "You get it." And I was so proud because my grandfather grew up probably the same way Bill Jr. did, and I learned these things. So I go to Joliet, Illinois, and I have 3.5 years there. I've got to build a $135 million speedway. I'm working for the two biggest families in motorsports. Okay, I screw this up. I probably have to pick a new career, right? So here I am, pressure's on, and you talk about a deep end of a pool. This is now a whole lot different than what I thought or realized, because I'm now in charge of something that is going to take a 700-acre farmland, turn into a 75,000-seat 1.5-mile racetrack. We could truly spend hours on that experience, the lessons I learned. Needless to say, I take the family business and I take that experience of working for these two entities and what we had to accomplish in a 22-month period, and those have stayed with me forever. From there, both entities wanted me to come join their organization, Indianapolis again, or Daytona. I went to Indianapolis and ultimately became the president of the racetrack there. Again, that little bit of a story where I said, grandfather raced there in the 40s, and here I am running the racetrack. Truly a special time in my life, that family connection. I always felt like I was a caretaker at these family brands. I'm just a caretaker. I'm going to hopefully protect it, preserve it, perpetuate it, and hand it off to the next caretaker who has the privilege to be part of this team to run this family brand. And I did that for 7.5 years. And I dealt with not just Tony George, but his mom was the chairman of the board, so Mary, and then she had 3 daughters, Tony's 3 sisters. And again, helping coach, mentor, guide, recommend, and to help that family business to continue. After 7.5 years, and as our family starts to mature and having a son, my wife and I were like, can we get back to Florida at some point? Friends and family. We've been on the road a bunch, 3.5 years in Indy, 3.5 years in Joliet, 7 years in Indy. It'd be nice to get closer to friends and family. And it's almost like someone heard me say that down south. And I ended up getting a call to go back to Florida and work with the France family in a company called International Speedway Corporation. So the France family had 2 companies. NASCAR, privately owned, was the sanctioning body. Racetracks would sign contracts with NASCAR. NASCAR would grant you a race. Okay? Well, the France family took their 12 racetracks and put them into a public company. So I became an officer of their public company. Okay. I was the president of Daytona International Speedway. And then after that 6 years of that, I was promoted to chief operating officer of their company and had oversight of the 12 racetracks, which represented 20 of the 35 NASCAR races. Okay. And so the other story about Daytona is the story goes, I was born February 20th, 1969 in Tampa, Florida, and my mom was on her own. Okay. My dad was actually too busy the day I was born. He was racing a car at Daytona International Speedway. Whether this is true or not, they supposedly announced that he became a father over the PA system. Oh, did they really? So, I had a personal connection there. My dad still owned tickets to the Daytona 500. And so as you run these venues, you've got to do the photos and this and that. So I actually went out to the grandstands and I sat in one of my dad's seats. And I had sat in that seat when I was a teenager, when I would skip school and go over to the Twin 125s at Daytona in February. So at this point, I've had a chance to be at these 2 massive venues and a family connection to both. Again, did I say I was the luckiest person out there? Again, time, opportunity, circumstance, it all seemed to work. And after 10.5 years, NASCAR, the private company, wanted to take the public company private. And I felt like I had accomplished everything I needed to, and it was time to do something else. Now, do something else for me was, hey, let's catch our breath. Let's maybe take a little bit of time off and, have a little bit of fun. At that last 3.5 years as COO, with 20 of the NASCAR races under our leadership, I was a bit of a road warrior. And not just like a fly in on a Friday, leave on a Saturday. I would traditionally go in for the 3-day weekend. So you'd go in on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday is the event, and fly home on a Monday. So it was a significant travel effort. So I decided I'll take some time off. Maybe I'll play some golf and I'll just run around. Lasted a couple months. Ultimately got pulled into Mecum Auctions to help give them some guidance. I was a strategic advisor, kind of did some business planning and some other things. Got a phone call. I have a house in Orlando. When I was growing up in Tampa, I would skip school and I would always go check out a day or two of the Arnold Palmer Invitational in Orlando. Palmer family was looking for somebody to be a tournament director. Got a chance to get on the phone with Amy Palmer Saunders. She's running the company after her father's passing. And we had an unbelievable conversation because I had lived everything she was living right then. Family name on the wall, the decisions you make, the impact. Is it supporting the legacy? Is it taking away from the legacy? So we just had such a great conversation and joined their team and helped with some corporate things in terms of all the business entities that they had, their licensing, and then running the tournament, and did that for 2.5 years. Had a chance to go help Barrett Jackson for a wee bit. Again, I'm a car guy at the end of the day, so that was a cool opportunity. And then the PGA Tour came calling. And one element that I probably glossed over, when I was at Daytona, we were very friendly with the PGA Tour up in Ponte Vedra, and a gentleman named Matt Rapp was their tournament director then. I was the president of Daytona. I would go visit Matt during the event, and I'd follow him around and ask him questions. Why do you do that? Why do you do this? Where did you build? He'd come down to Daytona and follow me around and do the same thing. So now fast forward to Joey's playing some golf, which lasted 3 months. I go do these other things. I'm doing Barrett Jackson. Guess who's responsible for finding the tournament director for the President's Cup? Matt Rapp.
Very small world, right?
So Matt and I met in Ponte Vedra. We had lunch at a little barbecue restaurant, and we ended up being there for 2.5 hours. And we talked for 30 minutes about the opportunity. We spent 2 hours just talking about sports and business and lessons learned. And it ultimately was, we kind of had a joke. He goes, "What do you think?" I said, I'm in. Let's do this thing. But I said, "Wait a second. Are you going to pay me?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "All right, I'm in." So again, a fun little synopsis of the things. And each venue location has a story in and of itself of challenges, tough days, great days, lessons learned, leaders that I love to emulate, leaders that I might have learned how to do things different from because I didn't feel like that was what I needed at the time. But I take from all of those stops things that I try to think about. At the end of the day, probably the most impactful thing is when you become a little bit more self-aware about the triggers within yourself that cause you anxiety or don't, or how do you overcome that anxiety by some tricks of the trade. I'm going to share it. People may think this is dumb, and that's okay, but it works for me. I need to get off property at least once during the day, and I'm going to sneak out to a Starbucks and I'm going to get some caffeine to get me through the afternoon. But that 20 minutes gives me a chance just to kind of catch my breath. Let's get a little caffeine because I want to hit the afternoon hard. And it becomes habitual for me. And when I don't get that time, I can feel a little bit of that, I'm in a grind. It's not so. There's a trick that I've learned that helps me get through the day a little better. And look, I'm happy to get in early. I'm happy to sleep, but I just need that little sneak off property and catch that break. Or I'm sure you have the same issue. There are moments when the crush happens and I can't get in my own way. I can't figure out the emails to respond to. There's 3 calls on your phone. There's a text message I need to respond to. You are feeling it. I literally just get out the notepad and I go old school and I just write the list. And after I write the list, okay, you got to get 5 things off this list by the end of the day. And it gets me recentered. Yeah. I get rebalanced because we can let everything just overwhelm us. And candidly, this week, I've had a couple of those moments where, all right, I got to get the pen. Let me write this down. And when I see it, I can do it. Yeah. And I get myself out.
Purge and get it out.
Get up one more time, then you fall down. Yeah. That applies in the same situation. But it's so amazing to think about anxieties, issues, pressures you felt with younger. But as we mature and the scar tissue helps you go, okay, I now know why I'm feeling this way. Right. And I know how to kind of get myself past it. Doesn't mean I can't ignore the emotions of uncertainty or confidence you need or how you prepare. It's just I've got to make sure I don't get caught in that valley where I become unproductive because I've got too much swirling in my head. And so again, so that little path I've had, I ultimately make a joke, right? And I like to put things in perspective, right? I've had a chance to work at some really great venues, places that were connected to my family, very meaningful for me. But I'm a guy who grew up as a stuntman in a family stunt show. I had a truck driver's license. I drove a car carrier. I slept in rest areas and truck stops all across this country, and we would perform 100 shows a year from June through October. And I've been given the keys to the castle at some of the most historic venues on the planet. I've got everybody fooled. I just got to fool them for a couple more years because I don't think I ever thought this was what I would get to do. And every day I say to myself, you've been very lucky. Opportunity, the right moment, and you jumped in. And if you're given that chance, I'm not going to let it go. I'm going to double down and work as hard as I can.
But I think that's the difference, right? It's not luck when you do the things. If people have been listening, it's not luck. When you talk about, getting in and working and asking for more, and sometimes, grinding it out and falling down and not taking risks is not an option. You have to take risks in whatever you're doing. Push the envelope, right? Going faster than you're comfortable with in order to do it. So if people have been listening, they know it's not luck when the opportunity presents itself, and you've built up this scar tissue, you've built up the wisdom now to be able to address the challenges that may come. And no one knows, right? No one's had the President's Cup at Medina before, right? No one's built. I mean, it is the first time this is happening. So by definition, it's unique. And yet some of the challenges you see and process you've seen before. And it's just a different application that's coming in. So I hear the luckiest piece of it, and I get the sense of your gratitude and just appreciation for life and the opportunities that have arisen, but you're also your preparedness so that when those opportunities arise, because it's not just luck, right? There's an item, and we're gonna have to wrap up here too, and there's a couple more items I want to hit on. One is, before we started, you were sharing a bit about, now with the PGA versus everything before has been the different family businesses, and you've gone through these different families across the board that you've worked with. And you shared in that, and I wrote it down, which is in a family business, because family office, family business, everything starts with family first. And you said protect, preserve, and perpetuate. Share a little bit more about family businesses, because that's a big core of our listenership too, are these entrepreneurs and the subsequent generations. Protect, preserve, and perpetuate.
And it's interesting to think back, and I'm not sure when I even thought those three words, but just for some reason, as you deal with things, you see it. And it's probably more because you're seeing what families start to do. And one of the things that's a very common trait is they think there's a balance to it. We push and we do a little of this, or we preserve this, we protect. But I think most families tend to overprotect. And I think that's the safer play. Safer to say no, because we know that's not going to damage the brand. We're not going to put it at risk. But the minute you overprotect, you're taking the brand away from people. You're not sharing it. And I think I saw that at Indianapolis. I definitely saw it in the NASCAR world and at the golf world with the Palmer family. Again, this is just human nature. These are the pressures we feel when we run our family business and we want to protect the family name. The worst thing of any family member can be that you're the one in charge and you're the last one in charge. And the family business doesn't continue to thrive or succeed. And that's where that protection thing becomes like, oh my goodness. And so it's finding the right balance. It's also finding, I think, the right leadership to assist. And that's a really unique thing. I felt very comfortable and I could articulate my own experiences in a way that I think helped me create confidence and trust with the family members I work for to help us chart the path forward. And I know that in some places, maybe the individuals prior to me did not have family business experience. And I think that's tough to learn if you haven't come from it because it's unique.
Yeah.
And you have to have that scar tissue or the other elements to help you with it. So I think for me, those are the three words: find the right balance. How do your recommendations fit in each of those? And also, at the end of the day, you don't want to be a flashpoint for the family web, pushing them or making them uncomfortable. It is their business, right?
Right.
At the end of the day, you're just the caretaker, and you try and help, take it as far as they'll let you. But I also learned that there's a moment in time where you start to really feel where the limit is, and the family just is not going to get past that. You, at that moment, have to make the decision of, are you comfortable just helping them with where their limit is? Or at the end of the day, time to go do something else. You never want to get in a situation where they think you're trying to do something with their brand that's not appropriate. That will create a tension, and candidly, probably you won't be able to fix it. Right. If they think that, they can't trust you with it. And so it's the balance of how you look at preserve, perpetuate, and protect. And can it be balanced with the family's feelings about the same and help them get there? And so every step of the way, I felt like I was able to find that right balance, that connection, and had a chance to do, oh my goodness. One of my Daytona projects was to rebuild the Daytona International Speedway. And I was tasked with creating Daytona Rising. That was the term we used. And the company granted us $400 million to rebuild the entire front stretch. And I like to say we created the first motorsports stadium. And I can remember having the meetings with the family and Jim France at the time and Lisa France Kennedy. And I felt like whether it's preserve, protect, perpetuate, I understood the legacy of Big Bill France. And I felt like this project was walking in his steps from 50 years before of recreating the Daytona International Speedway for the next 50 years, because it needed that attention. It had been there for 50 years, and we needed to make sure it could survive and thrive for the next 50. And what a great project to represent that family on and to do something so significant and transformational in motorsports. But again, that never would have happened were it not for the connection, the relationship, the confidence, the trust that I was going to manage this the right way and make sure the family knew the limits and how to get there. And at the end of the day, help them continue their family's legacy.
Yeah. Yeah. That's an episode into itself because of where you could end up shifting down in that protection mode, being risk averse so much to not have the perpetuation, taking that step. And yet that trust build, the integrity of what that means back for the family in order to perpetuate what it is that they want to achieve. That in and of itself is just fantastic. I'm going to give you a closing opportunity, closing words of wisdom, scar tissue, lessons learned, life, any additional information for the President's Cup to kind of close this up here, Joe?
Well, for us, it's a special event. It might not ever come back to Chicago. It's 30-year history. It hadn't been here in 30 years. I don't know when it'll come back. It's a great moment in time to enjoy an international global sporting event. By the way, it'll be broadcast to 200 different countries, 23 different languages. It's truly going to shine a spotlight on this market. And I think this market is going to be well prepared for it, and it will show nicely. I guess if I were to ask anyone to take anything from this, is go for it. Yeah. Take a shot at it. You fall down, get back up. And for me, I think I had to, jump into the deep end and leave a family business that provided a lot of comfort and stability and habit. And I had to get uncomfortable, and I had to get back into school and say, what are you going to do? And I was able to strike it in the moment where opportunities presented themselves. And if they said no, they said no. If they said yes, guess what? I'm moving on to that great opportunity because I went for it. And so I would just say, it's out there. You've got to be ready for it and take advantage when you can. And it's okay to take a shot. And if you get roughed up a little bit, that's going to help you get better for the next one. Yeah, and luck might just happen too. Joey, thank you so much. We're gonna finish here because you've got other meetings to get to, but this is an extremely busy time. Appreciate that, and mostly just your time, your words of wisdom here for listeners. Thank you, listeners. Pass this episode on to everyone you know. We've talked about life. We've talked about business. We've talked about sports. Enjoy what you're doing. Take that opportunity. Create your luck.
and push forward. If you have any questions, you want to continue the conversation, please send us an email at clearconversations@ccpwealth.com. With that, have a blessed day.